Well, welcome everyone to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, comparing retirement plans at a glance. Part 4 in our series on the Journey Guide to Retirement with mathematician and software creator, Michael Smith. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Okay, now let's talk about this, Michael. We're in this fourth segment where we're talking about comparisons. I like comparing plans at a glance. I like, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a graph has to be worth half that, right?
That's right.
So
That's
I want to look at things. People are visual, and people want to see a timeline. The human existence is, we're on an analog timeline going forward. Yeah. I want to look at that and show me, comparing these over my lifetime, what am I getting for risk? What am I getting to get out? What's my probability? I want to see that number.
Sure. So what we have done, and we did this in the last segment, we added in 2 income annuities, right? So we're deferring that income, but we're able to demonstrate exactly how much they're going to be able to spend at the beginning of retirement. So we said that they could increase, with this example, they could increase from 87.9 up to 93, again, after tax. So what's interesting, and my background is again in the investment management space. When I was approached with looking at these guaranteed income streams from annuities, I was absolutely skeptical, thinking there is no way that these things fit. Or if they do fit, it's a very isolated view and only for the ultimate, very conservative types of analysis. So what we're doing here is we're looking again at the 95th percentile. So at a particular percentile, but there's more to life than just one slice of a percentile. What we think is actually unique to what we're doing, in fact, we know this is unique. Nobody else is showing, well, what does that look like across the whole spectrum of those 5,000 simulations, and being able to compare one plan versus another. So did actually adding in those annuities, making that shift in asset allocation, actually help me or hurt me? And so what we're doing here, and this is probably the most interesting thing that we actually can graph, is we're looking at all of these 5,000 simulations across the bottom here. So on the left-hand side, you can see very poor market or unfavorable conditions. So not only, possibly like bad average markets, but also a poor sequence of those returns. And then over on the right-hand side, it's favorable market conditions. So, and then what we're doing is actually graphing across all of those conditions, all those 5,000 simulations, how much could that client actually have spent? So the blue line represents their current plan. And what we're doing is you can actually hover over and see what that dollar amount is. So after tax, the client, if they decided to spend $135,000, again, this is a $2 million client, if they decided to spend $135,000, they would only have a 10% chance, meaning, 1 in 10 of actually succeeding. 9 out of 10 would fail if they spent $135,000. Conversely, if we're looking at, say, the 90th percentile, so they could have actually spent $91,000 or almost $92,000 and have a 9 in 10 chance. So we're graphing all of those across here, and you can kind of see where they fall. So what really gets interesting, though, is, well, what happens if we add in the guaranteed income streams from the annuities? Again, it's happening for life. They're getting that income for the rest of their life. But what's the actual impact? Well, as I would have expected, yes, I can spend more in, say, the 90th percentile. In this case, it was 96.5. So sure, in the poorer markets, the annuity makes a lot of sense. You're going to be able to spend more. But what happens then? What are you giving up on the other side? And this is really compliance departments absolutely love this, because you're no longer just telling one side of the story, but you're telling the whole side and seeing what the impact is. Now, quite often what happens, Steve, is the clients will look at this and say, that's great. I'm concerned about poor markets. I want to make sure that I'm going to be okay. They immediately gravitate to that and they say, perfect, this is for me. Others say, okay, I feel like that I may be giving something up here, and we can quantify and actually show, again, on demand, in real time for the client, what the impact is.
Okay, so now if I make any adjustments, as you just said, the client sees this and says, I'm willing to maybe not take as much. I'm going to lose a little on the maybe upside on the equity position, But I like the idea that the annuity not only gives me the guarantee, but it reduces my risk in the marketplace.
That's right.
Now, see,
That's right.
this is an issue where even if I was not going to, let's just say, for example, we're just doing securities. That's all we're going to do for this show. And I'm going to be looking at what is the best rate of return I can get with the lowest possible beta. That's what I want. I mean, that's the name. That's the name of the game.
That's it.
So if I plug that number in and I do anything but securities, and I'll throw in bonds on the same side of that equation, not just equities. So I'm looking at that. I'm walking the client, and I said, I want to overlay on this graph 2001, 2, and 3, and 2008.
Right.
And I just want to show you the impact of a truth that we all went through. Baby boomers now, we're really sensitive to this.
That's right.
Right now, we're so sensitive. You're not speaking to the psychonomics of the baby boomer right now. You're missing it. So I could overlay that, right?
Absolutely. In fact, that's exactly what we're doing here. And so we're actually looking at those market conditions. So if they would have happened to have retired in, say, 2008, that would have been a condition that would have been down here in, say, the 90th percentile. And so we can see exactly what the impact would have been of a very poor market type of sequence and compare it to, well, what if they actually had that guaranteed income coming in? It would have been addressed.
I'm just trying to be the normal person. If I'm a baby boomer born in 46, which is the front end of that generation, and I look at that number, 2008, I'm retiring around 2008, and I look at the impact that had on my life and my portfolio, which impacts my lifestyle. If that doesn't, I would use that overlay every time, because you demonstrate it so well, to really adjust my thinking as a senior.
Yes.
Do I really want the exposure? And what am I'm giving up? We keep going to the line. Well, I could have had that.
Right.
But
Right.
I have
Right.
that.
Exactly.
See, that's what this demonstrates so well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and what's so interesting here is that yes, we're able to demonstrate immediately what that increase in income is at those poor markets.
I want to talk a little bit about the science of opportunity cost analysis of one plan over another, because to me, I think there's some drama here.
Oh, absolutely.
So
then this is exactly what we're representing here. So you can see in terms of opportunity costs, what did, and again, going back to kind of the challenge that was before us of, well, what is it that we're actually giving up, right? What is that opportunity cost of purchasing the annuities? And this is really a challenge that we hear quite often in this space, because there's certainly an emotional side to making sure that you have that guaranteed income that's coming in. But then there's also more of the analytical, and especially for those engineers out there, they want to know, okay, well, I understand from having that guaranteed income for the rest of my life from an emotional standpoint, but what about the numbers themselves? And we're able to demonstrate that immediately. Now, Steve, what's interesting, especially for those folks, those clients, is to be able to show that, well, wouldn't we want to be able to, if you're looking at this and maybe thinking, okay, that crossover is somewhere around here, the 50th percentile, 58th percentile, meaning if markets would have to perform at least at the 58th percent or better in order for their current plan to actually be better off. Well, you're looking at this and thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I actually could get this yellow line above the blue line in all market conditions? And if you think about, well, what was it that we actually did back when we actually added in those guaranteed income streams from the annuities? What we did is we actually took assets from their non-qualified and from their qualified, purchased the annuities. And so if you think about kind of their overall risk tolerance and their overall asset mix at that point, they're actually much more conservative, right? Because we've essentially replaced their overall asset mix of 40-60 with kind of like a bond replacement with that guaranteed income. Well, what happens if we actually readjust it now back to what overall would be a 40-60? So we're taking their remaining assets, rebalancing it so that they're now back to their total risk tolerance of a 40-60 portfolio. And we can now see they actually are better off across the board. So they not only have an increase in guaranteed income during those unfavorable market conditions, the 2008 scenarios, but they're also able to take advantage of those more positive markets, We think this is just a phenomenal way of being able to compare those plans right on one screen with the client.
And I think the client then starts to understand, brings a little more definition to their understanding of their own risk tolerance.
That's right.
To me, that's a huge issue. Listen, don't forget to watch our next segment, Putting the Retirement Pieces Together, part 5 in our series on the Journey Guide to Retirement. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.